Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. Today, we cooked up a little program about four of our beautiful space shuttles that orbited the Earth this time of the year. 16 shuttles orbited the Earth, and we love talking about them individually, but it occurred to me that we've got a theme among four of them that flew three around the Earth, establishing things that have changed the way we live, and one of them went to the International Space Station. So stay tuned for all that as I say hi to Selvin Trotter, manning the board today. Hi, Selvin. He gives me a good thumbs up there. He's pinch hitting for Marty Winkle, who's on a well deserved vacation with his family up in the Carolina Blue Ridge Mountain area. And heard it was a little chilly up there for him, but he'll get down here and warm his bones up and be with us next week as Marty and I have done 4 years of Stay Curious, born out of the pandemic, 1,030 some shows under our belt as we've done this Monday through Friday because, hey, every day is a space history day that we can talk about. So, first today, though, we want to talk about a week from Saturday is our 32nd charity auction for the museum. It is for our nonprofit, the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation, established over 30 years ago to first build the monuments out at Spaceview Park, and then a museum evolved out of that. Our humble museum here in downtown Titusville needs quite a bit of money to keep our 4 full-time employees and a handful of volunteers running this operation. So these auctions are a big part of our capital money expenditures that we need to operate. So all of you have been very generous also in just giving us tax deductible donations. But this auction is all about photographs, 260 plus archival photographs out of the laboratories of NASA, the U.S. Geological Survey that does all the maps for the moon and the planets and their moons, and a lot of Hubble telescope pictures are also original prints are for sale. Or for you to bid again, just go to our website or hit that QR code. It'll take you where you can sign up to hit when the gavel starts on Saturday, May 4th at noon. This will probably go to about 5 o'clock, just 260 lots. Sometimes we've had almost 400. But here you see an example, Apollo 11 photographs printed out of Johnson Space Center's labs, and you can own them. And Buzz Aldrin walking down the ladder there may go for $300 or $400, but these are real, stamped on the back or have the red letters and numbers on them, and are on photographic paper from 50 years ago. So we have all kinds of surveyor spacecraft photos, some Hubble telescope, like I said, different lunar orbiter, a lot of cool lunar orbiter photographs out there. So tell your space geek friends any of these photographs, beautifully framed, become a piece of art on your wall. Well, the space shuttles of the month of April. 95 astronauts flew on these 16 shuttles, 8 of them women. This is one of the busiest months of the year to launch. Of course, right there in the center is the one that started it all, STS-1, with John Young and Bob Crippen on April 12th, 1981. And, you've got some really very interesting missions. The reflight, the STS-83 was brought back and then reflown as 94. Let's see here. Our good friend Charlie Walker flew right there on that one, right there. STS-51B, another April 12th launch in 1985. But today we're going to talk about, well, here, this is another chart that I put together to show you why I picked this date. Your timeline's along the bottom that you don't see, but here's all 16 of them launched from the 1st of the month to the 30th over here. And actually this goes out to the 6th of May for the landing of the ones at the top. So I like looking at how many orbiters were orbiting the Earth at one given time. And there you see on about April 12th, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 orbiters orbiting the Earth on that dates. And that, I think the record's 8 that we've had. Of course, not at one time. We're juxtaposing years and decades on top of this. But on April 26th, you've got STS-90 in space, STS-100, STS-31, and 55. And we're going to look at all 4 of those collectively together, because 31 is concerned with the universe and the Hubble telescope. 55 was concerned with the body and did something that's very routine on Earth for the very first time in space, dealing with the body. And then STS-90 was all about the brain, as they had a device there to test brain waves as well as the vestibular ear science. And then STS-100 in the year 2000, that did go to the space station, the only one of these 3, was all about the robot, and has one of the coolest logos of all the shuttles, in my opinion. And we'll talk about each one of those as we kick it off here on Stay Curious today. This spectrum of science, from the universe, the body, the brain, and the robot, from these 4 magnificent space shuttle flights. The logos, you know that I love talking about the artwork, and specifically use this book, the Mission Patch Handbook, that you can get anywhere. This is an Aerographics printed book from 2012, and a real good one, and it gives a concise view of each of the patches. The mission for STS-31, of course, features the Hubble telescope in its observing configuration against a background of the universe it will study. The cosmos includes a stylistic depiction of galaxies in recognition of the contribution made by Sir Edwin Hubble to understand the nature of galaxies and the expansion of the universe. It is in honor of Hubble's work that this great observatory in space bears his name. And we did a program on Hubble earlier this week. He was quite a character, a boxer, what a superb athlete, very tall and handsome. And he went to one of the first Rhodes Scholars to go to Cambridge in England, and he came back rocking a English accent and British clothes the rest of his life. So always had that pipe there too. The space shuttle trails a spectrum symbolic of both the redshift of observations that were so important to Hubble's work and the new information that will be obtained with the Hubble Space Telescope. And encircling the scene are the names of the crew members there: Lauren Shriver, Charles Bolton, Steve Hawley, Bruce McCandless, and Kathy Sullivan right there. Bolden's on the left there, and Lauren Shriver in the center, and then Stephen Hawley's in civilian clothes because he was not a military person. He was an astronomer. And then Bruce McCandless, the second, was the mission specialist there. And I believe Kathy and Bruce are Navy, Marine for Bolden, and Army for Shriver there. Just a typical, we're going to look at some of the unique photographs that these crews take. They always do the pumpkin suit or the formal photograph of the crew, and then they may wear like this their civilian or military clothes, and then they change into something goofy sometimes. And you're going to see some goofiness from our German mission here just coming up. Of course, the Hubble, we don't need to talk too much about it today. There's its release from the payload bay of Discovery on April 26th. This is the day that they actually released it. That picture was made in 1990, 34 years ago. Imagine that. The telescope's got a barn door cover on it that's reflecting the Earth as it's pointed up to the sky to release it up about 380 statute miles, one of the highest of the Hubble era. Uh, STS-31 was the 35th mission of the Hubble. Just a quick 5 days to get it up there, make sure everything's good, and then come back. If something didn't work well on the telescope, after that it was released on the second or third day after release, they would go back and get it and bring it back to Earth and fix it. But they did have an anomaly where the mirror was not correct. Instead of bringing it back a year later or whatever, they sent a repair mission up there to put sort of glasses on that optical instrument, and it has just worked fine for 34 years and counting. They thought they'd get a good 10 out of it. So science, the number of doctorate theses on this with this telescope probably number into the thousands. So here's a panorama of some of the beautiful images that we're used to seeing and familiar seeing from the Hubble telescope there in its perch high above the Earth. Of course, a telescope above the Earth eliminates all atmospheric distortion and gets, you can see things that you can't see that's filtered through the Earth's atmosphere, as feeble as it is. So some wonderful discoveries around black holes, major discoveries of how exploding stars evolve and work, and all of it points to the fact that, Selvin, we're all stardust. We all are made of things out of the universe, and here on this planet called Earth, yes, these galaxies that look like pinwheels, and the explosions beside me here of a star, all this star matter has permeated into our bodies as Earthlings over the billions of years of how we've evolved. So quite a mission to remember, and our Shuttle Fest 4 is indeed going to be a 2-day event focused on the Hubble telescope 35 years later. That will be April 12th and 13th, 2025. And yes, sirree, we're making plans for that already, Doug Forrest, and hope that you can come, as we're trying to get everyone to save the date and then bring in a handful of those 32 astronauts who got to see the Hubble with their own eyes in service missions in the deploy. Well, let's go to our next shuttle of the month. That we've talked about the universe. Now let's talk about the body. Launched today, April 26, 1993, for a 10-day mission. The German lab was under Germany's management. Okay, and let me get my notes on this mission. This was aborted. The launch of this rocket was aborted at 3 seconds on March 21st, one of the 6 or 7 launch aborts that we had. The liftoff attempt on March 22nd was aborted at T-3 seconds by the orbiter computers due to an incomplete ignition of number 3 main engine. And as you look at the back end, that's the one in the upper right, I'm told. The liquid oxygen pre-burner check valve leaked internally, causing overpressurized purge system, which precluded full ignition of that engine. The valve leak was later traced to contamination during manufacturing. So NASA decided to replace all 3 engines on Columbia with spares, and the launch was reset for about a month later, but it was scrubbed when one of the 3 inertial measurement units gave a possible faulty reading, so they postponed it 48 hours to remove and replace the IMU. So this was a very historic mission in many ways, because it was the 16th and final mission of a space lab. And I want to make sure that was right. Yeah. And the second one that was under the German mission management. That's for the D2 for Deutschland, all right? And they had a lot of fun with the Germans, as usual. Astronauts from any country have a lot of fun cutting up. And in their non-serious picture, there's the rollout. Let me look at my list here so I can be on cue a little bit, Mark. There we are. Yeah, I got a couple pictures of the crew to show, but there's when it was brought back, March 22nd, for the review the redo of the engines. Um, and then there's this beautiful launch. All right, 88 experiments were conducted covering materials and life sciences. All right, they grew crystals on this. That's a real, not sure if that's a Tommy Usiak photograph. It's not Hasselblad, so I don't think it is. Um, but here's the crew. Some of them signed there. Sharon Caples McDougall is the lady on the left there, sitting on Terrence Hendricks's lap. He's the pilot. Steve Nagel in the middle is the commander. And then you got in the back African Americans, Dr. Bernard Harris, a real medical doctor. You've got Hans Schlugel and Dr. Ulrich Walter there. And then the other two on the right hand is Jerry Ross and Charlie Precourt. Let's see, Charlie Precourt sitting down there. Yeah, Charlie Precourt sitting down there. And that would be Ulrich Walter standing up there. The other people are the technicians at Johnson Space Center that help put the astronauts in their spacesuits, change them out. And Sharon McDougall on the left there, she is the spacesuit seamstress and conductor, and she was in charge. And these were the real spacesuits that they would fly. So they were very fussy, she was, with making sure nothing would happen to them that she would have to repair. So they had a couple fun pictures because they're German, and what do Germans like to do? And Jerry Ross likes to do? Drink beer. All right, and there they are to set up with some of them brought their spouses with them. That's who the women are in there. Okay, there were no women on this mission. And they set up a little bit of a Hoffenbrau house there, a beer house. Beer garden is what I'm trying to spit out there. And they must have thought that this didn't look German enough there, Selvin, because they did another take of it. Okay. And another excuse to drink some more beer. Now that looks more like a beer garden setting there. So you get an idea of the fun they had putting on the clothing. They didn't have all the clothing on there. See, they've got a different Western look there, and then they put on the traditional shorts with the suspenders and all that sort of stuff. So it looks like a fun crew. And they finally got off the Earth on April 26th, today, 1993. Okay, 31 years ago. How about that? And I believe all of them are still with us. Okay, Jerry Ross become the most experienced spaceman on America with 7 flights, tied with Story Musgrave. But what I find interesting, and as we go back here to look at the crew in this way there, Bernie Harris there on the left, a doctor, he did something, Selvin, that no one has ever done before, and that was a medical doctor. He set the first intravenous line in space, ejecting Schlugel with saline as part of a study to replace body fluids lost during adaptation to weightlessness. So in 1993 was the first time that anybody had a needle stuck in their arm to do intravenous transfer of fluids out of a bag into a human being. And apparently it all went well. Other members then participated in this experiment. And there was an interesting robotic arm called Rotex that captured a free-floating object in space via remote control from Earth. Never heard about that. So they had a robotic arm in the payload bay, and they floated something, and the arm captured it by signals coming from Houston. The crew members also communicated with children worldwide through the shuttle amateur radio experiment. All right. And I know that Dave Stangy's going, but Mark, you forgot to tell us about the artwork. And you're right, and I don't want to neglect that. The design for the Space Shuttle mission STS-55 displays the orbiter with the Space Lab module over the Earth sky background. The mission is the second dedicated to the German Space Lab and has accordingly been designated D2, the D for Deutsch. Depicted beneath the orbiter are the American and German flags, together flying, representing the partnership of this laboratory mission. The two blue stars in the border with the crew's name signify each of the backup payload specialists. Okay. Gerhard Thiel and Renate Brummer. So I didn't know that. So though they were the backups and would have gone had anyone become sick on the payload, they're remembered there. And I don't recall, I think Thiel went to space, but I don't recall Brummer. The stars in the sky stand for each of the children of the crew members in symbolic representation of the space program's legacy to future generations. The rainbow symbolizes the hope for a brighter tomorrow because of the knowledge and technologies gained from this mission's multifaceted experiments. Like I said, 88 experiments, and they truly did set the groundwork in 1993, 31 years ago, for what's happening on the International Space Station today, where we have 7 occupants up there. So that's why I love looking at these mission patches or logos or insignias, whatever you want to call them, in detail, because there's so much hidden little thoughts and symbolism in it, including the rainbow there for the future. Beautiful launch. The crew have a beer on them today as they went to space. I'll bet Jerry Ross is one of the Purdue knots. Well, STS-90. Now we've gone from the universe to the body to the brain. And obviously Neuro Lab on the patch there, you know what that means. So the patch reflects the dedication of the mission to the neurosciences in celebration of the decade of the brain. And not celebrating Pinky the Brain. Y'all know who Pinky the Brain is? Selvin? Yeah, a cartoon character. Earth is revealed through a neuron-shaped window. Ooh, okay. That outline is a neuron. I thought it was kind of an amoeba-looking thing. Symbolizing new perspectives in the understanding of the nervous system development, structure, and function, both on Earth and in microgravity, the environment of space. This was a critical mission, understanding a little bit about how neurons and so forth are they altered in space. Columbia's open payload doors reveals the Space Lab. The laboratory provided by the European Space Agency signifies the strong international involvement in the mission. The 7 crew members and 2 alternate payload specialists are represented by the 9 major stars of the constellation Cetus the Whale in recognition of the International Year of the Ocean. So those loosely, Cetus is not a constellation that you can go out and look at and say those stars make up a whale. It's all a lot of imagination. In effect, Cetus is a hard to see constellation that you got to be down here in the southern, close to the equator to see it. But nonetheless, they're celebrating the International Year of the Ocean here in 1998. The distant stars illustrate the far-reaching implications of the mission to science and its sponsoring agencies, preparing for long-duration spaceflight aboard the ISS. The Moon and Mars are the next great challenges in human exploration of space and represent the key role that life science research plays in supporting such missions. So you see the crescent moon and the red of Mars there. So in the Earth below for the Neuro Lab. Well, let's see what we got. There's the crew in their Star Trek. So you could say, yep, they're Trekkies all right. And this includes you got 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. This includes the 2 mission backups on this, and their names were, it didn't tell us their names. So, but who we had on this mission, Richard Searfoss was the commander. He's sitting there on the left. He's passed away. Scott Altman is sitting there in the commander garb. Okay. And you've got Richard Linehan, Daff Reese, Williams, uh, Kay Hire. Kay Hire's the one lady, of course, in the center, and Mission Specialist Jay Buckley and Dr. Pawlowski. All right. Now, Kay Hire was Kennedy Space Center's first employee to be chosen as an astronaut candidate. Kay worked in the payload bay as an engineer, and I've met Kay many times, and this was her first mission. And then her last mission, she got up and helped put the cupola on the space station on STS-131, I think that was. NeuroLab had 26 experiments targeted the most complex and least understood part of the human body, the nervous system. And mentioning Kay, there she is right there with Melinda Tribe there, and we've got Larry Clark was on our board there, and we've got Eric. Eric's standing there in the red shirt there, and he's one of our Eric Baker. Eric Baker is an excellent docent on Mondays when you come here. Well, let me get a drink here with a Detroit Motor City mug celebrating the NFL draft in Detroit. Thank you, Dave Stange, for getting me this, you and your wife, Julie. Not the same stuff Marty puts in it, Selvin, but it'll do, okay? Anyway, Kay's a great person. We'll have her on Stay Curious sometime. She's actually had some conflicts that she couldn't, she kind of had a non-compete. She couldn't be on with us. And Eric Baker, great to see you, buddy. Here was the centerpiece of this. They actually put, this was inside of the space lab, okay? Let's take a dentist chair and create a centrifugal force around it, and a chair that can go in all kinds of directions and everything. So the subjects of this STS-90, the brain, on Columbia space flight from April 17th to May 3rd, very long 16-day mission for 7 people cooped up in the, well, they could go in the space lab there and chill out. They had the crew members were test subjects. They had rats, they had mice, they had crickets, they had snails, and they had fish up there. And NASA was involved with this, the Canadian Space Agency, France, Germany, and the European Space Agency, as well as what is now called JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, which was called National Space Development Agency of Japan at the time. Most of the experiments were conducted there in this pressurized lab. It was the 16th and last scheduled flight of the Space Lab. I was incorrect about that on the D2. This is where was the last of the Space Lab. Research was conducted, not to be confused with Space Hab. Someone's out there going, wait a minute, wasn't STS-107 Columbia a Space Lab? No, it was a Space Hab, a little bit smaller of an insert into the back there. They did a lot of vibration tests on the shuttle during this in 1998, and they had 3 getaway specials. Those were little canisters that you could pay to put your experiment in and even leave the experiment in there, or maybe it was something that you wanted to have a spring loaded to orbit the Earth for a while, and universities and individuals did that. So this NeuroLab, important baseline for what's going on in the International Space Station. Now they regularly do NeuroLab research on our nervous system, of course. We've got now a database of 22 years occupancy in space, and some real long duration astronauts, men and women that have been up there for 6, 9, and some even almost a year. So, but this was a groundbreaking one, the NeuroLab on the brain in 1998, one of our shuttles of the month. There's one of the important experiments that was going on there, talking about the vestibular vestibular fluids in our ears. There you see the person sitting on the chair that I'm showing you here, and the eyes were very important too. And one of the things they're finding out about long duration astronauts is some of them, their eyes misshape in space because no gravity and it doesn't go back. So there's a handful, more than a handful of astronauts that come back not needing reading glasses, and they end up needing glasses for nearsightedness or farsightedness. And this means that we're going to have to take an optometrist along with us to Mars, as serious as that problem is becoming. So, where our final shuttle in the month to talk about is the robot. And the robot can be interpreted in many different things, but let's first look at STS-100, launched April 19th, 2001 for a 12-day trip to the International Space Station. The STS-100 emblem reflects the complex interaction of robotics and extravehicular activity on the mission. During the mission, spacewalks will be conducted to deploy the International Space Station Robotic Manipulator System, and it's simply called the SSRMS. The EVA helmet frames the patch. That's why I love this patch. It's a helmet, a space helmet, the entire patch outline, with the Canadian arm SSRMS shown below the visor. That's it right here, going down like that, with the arm bolt, the arm elbow in the middle there. Reflected in the visor is Endeavour, with the ISS rising above the horizon at orbital sunrise. Isn't that cool? Endeavour's payload bay houses a Space Lab pallet, itself holding the SSRMS and the space station ultra-high frequency antenna. Okay. And the Italian-built multi-purpose logistics model, Raphael, is also depicted in the payload bay there with the squares on it. And those were modules that were cargo ships to cargo, like taking up a storage unit, all right, and then bringing it back full of trash, and then they would take it up again. Those were built by ESA. Pods is what I'm trying to say, like parking a pod. And I think they kept one of them up there permanently for storage. Raphael, okay, American, here's the flags we see. American, Russian, Canadian, and Italian astronauts compose the crew, and their flags are stylized in the lower portion of the emblem. 10 stars adorn the sky, representing the children of STS-100 and the future of space exploration. A theme that was in the D2 STS mission 55. So there's the crew up in space. The advanced robotic arm called Canada Arm 2 was attached to a pallet on the outside of Destiny, the American module on the space station. Days later, the arm was used to hand off the cradle on which it rested during Endeavour's payload bay to the orbiter's arm. All right. The exchange of the cradle from station to arm marked the first ever robotic to robotic transfer in space, something that's become routine on the International Space Station. So the arm in the shuttle handed off the new arm on the space station. And 6,000 pounds of cargo is inside Raphael. That's 3 tons, including 2 new scientific racks for Destiny and 3 commercial payloads. They also calibrated robotic arms, found a way to calibrate them with the Space Vision System and alignment aid. And so they also filmed for IMAX on this. A nice 12-day mission to the International Space Station by Endeavour. OV-105 was its tail number. So, and of course there is Raphael right there attached, and they would attach it and then empty it. And I'm not sure what spacewalker that is. I'm thinking that could be Chris Hadfield or Scott Perezinski. You had the going back to the crew there. The commander was Kent Romager, Romo, who's his nickname. He's got the mustache there in the middle. And pilot was Jeff Ashby is beside him there. A lot of mustaches and beards on this one there. Chris Hadfield, many of you know Chris right there, Canadian, famous for singing David Bowie's song in space there, Space Oddity, but he's got a website, and we'll never get him at anything. He's a $25,000 talk is what he's doing. Scott Perezinski's over there on the left, smiling big. And I like John Phillips with the gray hair up there in the upper left, and Umberto Guido is the gentleman with the goatee there. So very historic, things that we take for granted. 2 robotic arms handing off one to another. No, we didn't do that in space until 2001. And there's a gorgeous shot there. So there you have it, highlighting 4 of the beautiful 16 shuttles in the month of April here. And as we end the month of April, we'll get into the shuttles of the month of May. And we hope that you all get into registering and bidding on our next charity auction, which will be a week from this Saturday, May 4th. You can own some beautiful prints, and any one of them that you would buy, take to a professional framer, put it on your wall, and I guarantee you it'll draw a lot of attention in your home or office. So, Selvin, thank you very much for coming in and doing the program today. And you did a great job this week. We're going to kick off the end of April and beginning of May next week with who knows what. But we all know that you want to stick around and find out, as Stay Curious has become a program where we celebrate the American space worker, the achievements of those space workers, and highlight things about the space station and shuttle that affect our lives on a daily basis. So until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying thank you for watching, and tell your friends to do the same. And tell everyone I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.